successful PSA with Meharry as part of a renewed and restored partnership. The Mayor's office is committed to working with NGH and Meharry to make this happen. I've expressed my confidence in the Hospital Authority Board and support their process to quickly identify a new interim CEO, and I remain as steadfast in my commitment to a strong Nashville General Hospital that serves Nashvillians for generations into the future. You've heard me speak many times about safety as a top priority of this administration. As we see more people choosing WeGo Transit and as we ramp up service through our Choose How You Move program, we're putting the foundational pieces in place to serve a growing system. Key pieces to this future are now underway thanks to the safety funding from Choose How You Move and an extensive 14-month safety and security review by national transportation security experts about critical needs for today and for the future. Yesterday, I joined Metro Nashville Police Department Chief John Drake in announcing the appointment of Captain Brian Williams to serve as MMPD's first permanent transit liaison. Starting March 1st, Captain Williams will serve as a liaison between WeGo, MMPD, and other critical partners to advance public safety at WeGo Central and at neighborhood transit centers. Captain Williams will work with Chief Drake to assess needs and create an environment that ensures all Nashvillians feel safe using public transportation. Importantly, he'll help review the needs for a transit-specific division within Metro Nashville Police Department. Captain Williams couldn't join us today, but I know we've got Deputy Chief Tommy Widener with us over the course of the next few months. Captain Williams will work with Chief Drake and Deputy Chief Widener to assess immediate and future needs. Yesterday, the WeGo Board of Directors also approved a new security contract, raising the number of staff security hours from 800 to 1,200. These additional hours will occur at both the Elizabeth Duff Transit Center and the Nestor Operations and Maintenance Facility. Additionally, WeGo will be rolling out a mobile security unit that patrols onboard buses as well as at specified bus stops, and we will continue partnering with WeGo and MMPD to continue to take action on the recommendations within the report as well as MMPD's findings. We've worked hard to ensure that over the next 15 years we have the chance to make significant improvements to our public transportation services. Nashvillians using public transportation can have increased confidence that it will be convenient and safe. Today marks the last day of Black History Month, and we have something new to celebrate. Today we're celebrating My Brother's Keeper, who are focused on paving the way for our future leaders. Just after their recognition at the Minority Caucus reception earlier this week, I'm excited to join MBK Nashville in announcing the formation of their executive leadership table. The leadership table is a strategic coalition of community leaders dedicated to improving opportunities and outcomes for boys and young men of color in Nashville. This diverse group of leaders from education, government, business, and nonprofit sectors will work collaboratively to ensure that young men of color, particularly black and brown boys, have access to the support, resources, and opportunities they need to succeed. Tomorrow, March 1st, also marks the start of Women's History Month, a time to celebrate the contribution of women here and everywhere. Our historic courthouse will be lighted in purple, green, and white tomorrow night to mark the occasion, and again on March 8th for International Women's Day. We have some extremely talented women athletes currently showcasing their skills just down the street at Municipal Auditorium. This weekend, I encourage people to check out the final games of the Athletes Unlimited basketball series. It's the first here in Nashville, and more is on the way. Athletes Unlimited announced plans just this morning to be back in Nashville next year, and we look forward to having them here in Music City again. We're continuing to monitor the latest impacts from the new administration at the federal level and review our Metro programs funded by the federal government. We're specifically taking a close look at programs funded by discretionary grants to determine potential impact of funding cuts to direct services provided to the community and Metro employees supported by federal grant funds. This week, the Cumberland River Compact, which handles Metro's tree canopy program, had $1 million in federal contracts terminated with no explanation. Federal grant funding is part of how Route Nashville, which Cumberland River Compacts operates, has planted 50,000 trees in the last 7 years en route to a goal of 500,000. There's no better system to slow and store stormwater, to clean air, to save on energy, even to calm traffic and improve public safety than our urban forests. Trees provably enhance quality of life by improving mental and physical health, decreasing crime levels, reducing noise, improving safer streets and neighborhoods, and even by boosting student attention. So surprising cuts to important programs that are already up and running and showing success are very hard for local jurisdictions to deal with. We're having Metro departments already ask starting to ask us how to account for potential losses in federal funding for key operations, and we're expecting some difficult decisions in the weeks ahead. Finally, excited to join the Lord Mayor of Belfast, Northern Ireland, Mickey Murray, this afternoon at Belmont for a discussion about reconciliation, civil rights, and lessons derived from our shared histories. Thanks to Belmont and Fisk Universities for hosting a two-day peace summit marking the 30th anniversary of the sister city relationship between Belfast and Nashville. Belfast was Nashville's third sister city in 1995 after Edmonton and Caen, France. Among the earliest European immigrants to settle in Tennessee were the Scots-Irish, including John Donaldson and James Robertson. Irish immigrants built the stone bridge across the Cumberland River in 1819, and we are hoping to have this bridge between Belfast and Nashville last well into the future. With that, happy to take questions. Yeah.
The transportation funding is just now starting to be collected and will become available. What difference will this liaison position have for riders and public safety on a day-to-day basis? What will they realistically be doing?
Yeah, so I think the early steps are this is a great new coordinating role between MMPD and WeGo that strengthens the safety-based linkage between the two agencies. Going forward, I think the hope is that for us, for WeGo, for MMPD, that that position plants the seed for a transit-based security operation, basically a transit police entity that will happen under MMPD supporting WeGo's operations.
You're looking at expanding to different transit hubs across Nashville, possibly, depending on what funding is available, of course.
Right.
How will this mobile unit help with that, make sure different stops across the county are safe?
I think it's like anything else. We've seen evidence here and in other cities that simple presence of somebody that is offering any level of security and safety helps deter crime. And so we think just like when you see people on foot patrol, bike patrol, patrolling in cars, when you have people present on vehicles at bus stops, we're going to just be sending a signal across the city that this entire system is intended to be safe. Okay, just real quick. I saw a hand up back here. I'll come back up here, Eli.
Do you believe that this partnership with the police department will kind of give residents more confidence in public transit and safety? Will we see more people, I guess, use public transit?
That's certainly the expectation. I know there were some parents who showed up with safety concerns at the WeGo board meeting yesterday, and I think my hope would be that not only WeGo's approval of an enhanced security contract, but also this notion that we will have kind of the mobile process in place, a dedicated transit-focused liaison within the Metro Nashville Police Department, and eventually funded by Choose How You Move, a growing number of personnel and options at transit centers. Yes, we expect this to increase confidence in the system.
I want to ask about.
Hang on, I'm going to come to Eli. I told him I would.
Can you explain where we are in the property tax reappraisal cycle and what role that plays in the city's finances?
Well, right now we know the assessor's office has announced a series of community meetings across the city and county. This is pretty standard for them. We are in an appraisal year. And basically when they go out and come back with the data and share it with our Metro Finance Department, we know what our property values are, and we combine that with our revenue forecast and understanding of departmental priorities, community priorities, and our priorities to forge a budget around that. Okay.
And in 2020 tornadoes, can you talk to me a little bit about the update on that? Are we fully recovered?
I think it's hard to find that moment when you say you're fully recovered, but we know next week marks that 5-year anniversary since the March 2020 tornadoes came through. For instance, in the community close to me, if you go up Arthur Avenue right now into the historic Buena Vista neighborhood, you will see the Mount Bethel Church still in a rebuilding stage. So I think across the city, you still see some signs of rebuilding. Similarly, from the Christmas Day bombing, you can still see infrastructure being redeveloped, as well as private properties being redeveloped as part of the Second Avenue. So there are still many signs of recovery even 5 years later, and I think for anyone who was friend or family to the people that lost their lives in the tornado, there may never be an end to that recovery process. Yeah.
You mentioned that the Cumberland River compact loss that would
job cuts? Has the city started preparing for layoffs?
So this is a tricky one because that grant was to CRC as a private entity, but they are a key partner in stewarding something that has been a city commitment for years. And so I'm worried about Cumberland River Compact in the same way that I'm worried about Vanderbilt. I mean, I just was reading this morning about how Vanderbilt is one of the top 5 NIH-funded entities in the country and has up to $585 million at risk. And so I'm definitely worried about the impact for the city of Nashville. We have not yet identified specific Metro employee job losses that could be at risk, but that's a daily evaluation right now. I think I saw Stephen, and I'll come back to you, Megan.
Which departments are most at risk, I guess? Like, do you have kind of a ranking ahead of which ones rely on federal funding on this?
Yeah, we've actually our finance department and law departments have been working systematically with departments to kind of categorize those federal funding flows, and I would say education as a top one, human services, so basically Metro Social Services, Metro Action Commission, which both have a lot of federal program support, housing, not officially Metro, but MDHA gets so much through HUD, and our Office of Homeless Services has some programs that may also be at risk, and that's an example of one we've already identified early as a high-risk area. I think health, with the Metro Public Health Department also having so much federal funding, and then, of course, infrastructure. We get so much through NDOT and WeGo from federal programs, and so I'd say those 5 may be the top. But we're kind of reviewing and updating that on a regular basis. Megan?
Have you or your legislative liaisons been looking at this Keep It Local bill? I saw it's kind of, let me explain it.
Yeah.
If you don't know what it is. I don't know, this is what they're calling it. But essentially, it would allow half of the realty
Yeah.
taxes to come back to the city. And I saw that half of that has to go to transportation infrastructure.
Yep.
So I didn't know if you were lobbying or looking at this.
Yeah, I would say we're kind of tracking it. I know when the Tennessee County Services Association had their recent legislative conference, the Association of County Mayors had a session there. A lot of attention there from county mayors across Tennessee. I did join them and speak. We're supportive of the bill. I guess I would say it this way. It's not one of our bills, but we are supportive of the efforts of the county mayors who are supporting it because we know it would be beneficial to all of the surrounding counties of Middle Tennessee. It's something that we've talked about in the Greater Nashville Regional Council process, certainly the ACM and TCSA process, and yes, Darren Jernigan is aware of it, tracking it. Our lobbying team is tracking it. I think that's where I would be looking at. We know that there are other conversations. There's a grocery tax, there's a couple of grocery tax bills. We'll need the dust to settle and look at that. That'll be a part of our how we look at what our opportunities are within our own local budget. I'm going to come back here, and then I'll come back to you.
You touched on briefly the implications of the CEO resigning at Nashville General Hospital. What's the impact on that around the support for a possible new hospital building and the future of the hospital, really?
Yeah, I think my hope is this is actually an opportunity for people to coalesce around what that new landscape looks like. I think it means, for instance, Meharry Medical College simply has an opportunity to re-enter the conversation as a full and crucial partner. I think it means we more realistically explore land options. We get to step away from consideration of things like Parks land at Metro Center, maybe the capacity conversation, but it really means we get to reimagine stakeholders and vision together, and so I think that's what we're focused on, is just how do we create the best possible future for Nashville General Hospital. Eli.
Yeah. Are you close to having a final decision on a chief program officer? This is how you move, and have you been personally involved in that hiring process?
I have been personally involved. I've interviewed 3 candidates personally. We've had some people come meet with some of the key implementing departments, be available to be on tours. I think that we're getting pretty close to a decision, but I think between that and East Bank Development Authority, our hope is to have somebody in place by spring.
It's feeling like spring.
It's feeling like spring. I think late March.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and now, we'll obviously share announcements as we have them, but I'm excited about having reached this stage in the process and getting to interact directly with finalists.
There's three.
We had 3 finalists that we interviewed, yeah.
Anything new about historical zoning?
We saw a substitute, and so I will say Councilmember Benedict has, as far as we can tell, done a very good job of interacting with stakeholders, with people who had concerns about the current regulatory process, with people who had concerns that changing things might mean changes to how neighborhood and historic overlays were dealt with at the community level, and she seems to have found a really good local legislative response to what we were seeing as potential preemptive activity at the state. I'm encouraged by what she has shared with our legislative team, particularly Dave Rosenberg and Brian Sexton, and right now today I'm supportive of what she's taking to the Metro Council, and we know that's a pretty tight timeline.
Any like further discussions with the state? Because the commission seem weary that even if this passes, it won't stop the state. And then also, could this affect what some of the historic zoning in the East Bank is? I was hearing from the Planning Commission, the zoning one, that they were hopeful that if they were brought under planning, that they could kind of work more hand in glove with some of the stuff that's going on in the East Bank and the preservation of historic areas and be more on the front end of things. I don't know, that was a lot of questions.
Yeah, we do stay very in touch with the state, and so I think this particular piece of legislation is one that means a lot of local state kind of linkage, and I feel like Darren is in the conversations with stakeholders, with Councilmember Benedict, with planning and historic, and with state legislators who have been interested in this process, and you know, folks, property owners, Broadway folks, and everybody who's been involved. I think the sense is that if we can demonstrate an approach to the regulatory side of what Metro Historic's function has been, that I think makes a consistent landscape for development services, we still think that we can avoid regulatory preemption, and so I think that's still the best case scenario for what we've seen at the state and what their interests are. And go back to Stephen, and then I'll come back up here, and then we can finish up.
Would it have been better to socialize some of these changes with some of these groups ahead of time? It seems like we were taken by surprise.
It's challenging because the timeline we were under basically ran from sort of a year ago to get the HDR report done. We didn't know what the recommendations were going to be. We have done quite a bit of work to meet with commission leadership, to meet with entities like the Preservation Society, certainly some of the folks who got interviewed, but you know, trying in just a year to get the recommendations through, look at what Historic's response is to that, get out to every neighborhood association that has an overlay. We are always trying to make sure we have capacity to do as much outreach as we can, but we've been working against a timeline that isn't one that we kind of designed. It's been, unfortunately, had to respond to last year's legislative environment and this year's legislative environment. And so, again, looking at end of March for a timeline on the Metro Council calendar is fundamentally a response to the legislative session.
And just real quick, this is a response to the state, but it's also something that you want to happen.
I would say we would have pursued independently a different approach.
But with
Hard to say. I mean, this one, the reason we have been considering it has been directly responsive to what we were advised of last year when the state legislature started focusing on this issue. And absent that, I don't know what it would have looked like. It's an impossible hypothetical. Yeah.
House Majority Leader Leanna Lambert introduced legislation to release the Antioch High School shooters' juvenile court records. Can you tell us on this?
I have not been following this particularly closely. I think similarly to what we've seen, there are a couple of things in this overall landscape. We know that in active investigations, there are documents that remain held, and I think it becomes even more complicated when there are juveniles involved. If he's pursuing a change in state law that would enable better release, I mean, that's their prerogative. I will say the Antioch High School shooting has a tremendous amount of complexity to it. And I think I'm always looking at our own after-action scenario and then what else we know about the investigation. I do know that he has been working with law enforcement and large tech companies also to look at how we could prospectively do better with intelligence. And so he's been helpful. And this latest issue I haven't followed as closely.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks.